You're here with Hannah Weir. I'm a multi-passionate creative, podcaster, speaker, and a certified meditation and mindfulness teacher. This podcast is designed to inspire a new way of being, living in the moment with more ease and alignment with our true selves. I'm on a wild journey of self-discovery and love, and I'm here to share that journey with you so that you too can fully embrace and express all that you are. Thank you so much for being here, and I really hope you enjoy the episode. Hello and welcome back to the podcast. I am so happy to have you here. You're here with Hannah. Welcome to the podcast. Welcome to my channel if you're watching on YouTube. And look at Nala. She is being so cute. I set her bed up here on the couch in the hopes that she would come settle down and sit next to me while I recorded this. So here we are. All right, before we get into this conversation, let's pause and take a really nice, deep, slow, conscious breath. And let it all go. And let's do that again. Inhaling fully through the nostrils if you can. And exhaling. So I have decided that I am going to pre-record a bunch of mini podcasts, and not like super mini, but just shorter than I would usually record, because if you've been listening for a while now, you would know that we are going away. Next week we leave to go to the US to visit my sister and her family. And then when we get back, literally the few days after we get back, we are moving out of this apartment, out of Melbourne, and moving to regional Victoria, moving to the country. So there's a lot happening in the next month, and I just thought I want to take the pressure off myself feeling like I need to record these big, long, lengthy podcast episodes and just do some short conversations so that I can keep uploading regularly while we're away, but also to just take the pressure off. And this really leads me to the conversation that I wanted to have in this episode, which is asking ourselves, am I making things more complicated than they need to be? Am I worrying myself over things that are not so important, or am I making things more stressful than they need to be? And this is something that it's been coming up a lot for me recently. My friend Rafa, who I have another podcast with called Led by Life, and in that podcast, we, just as a bit of a side note, if you weren't aware that I had another podcast, in that podcast, we explore our journey of self-discovery, our journey of working with the human design system and the gene keys. And we talk about all these different things that basically just like the human experience and what we're going through and all the full spectrum of human energetics and experiences. And we we go really deep into that. And Rafa was saying to me the other day, and again, as a side note, if you are interested, I'll leave that podcast linked below so you can go check it out. But Rafa was saying to me in a voice note recently that she had noticed herself making things perhaps more complicated than they needed to be, or stressing over things more than she needed to. And this really hit me when I heard her say it. And I said to her, I'm like, that is really profound what you've just said, because I started to notice these moments in my life where I was making things more stressful than they needed to be. And stress, we are all dealing with stress. Stress is a normal part of life. And I think a lot of stress has been learnt. I think a lot of stress has been picked up from our upbringing. We've and this society that we live in, we've learnt that stress is something that is, in a way, almost like, I don't want to say admirable, but it's almost like a badge of honor that people wear. if I'm really stressed, it means that I'm busy. It means that I'm doing lots of things that are important. It means that I'm being productive, or whatever meaning we've assigned to this idea or this notion of stress. But like, stress is the number one killer. Stress is the number one cause of disease. Stress is making us sick. And stress has been something that I have been really consciously deconditioning over the last many years, ever since I really became aware of just how much of an impact stress was having on my life, such a negative impact. And I have dealt with chronic pain in the past. I had a period of a good 5 or more years where I lived with chronic neck pain, and it was so debilitating. I had chronic headaches. Like, every day I would have really bad headaches, which clouded my ability to think clearly. It influenced my ability to interact with other people. It influenced my ability to function like a normal human being. And it really did prevent me from seeing clearly the circumstances in my life, because I was just so clouded by that pain, that physical pain. And it really was just so debilitating. So I know firsthand what an impact stress can have on the system, on the body. And if we don't address that stress, it will catch up with us at some point in the form of an injury, in the form of some sort of chronic pain or illness, in the form of some sort of disease or something. Like cancer, I hate to say it, but it's true. Like, this is what can happen if we're not aware of it. And so I know I've kind of skipped to being a bit extreme about it all, but this is something that I've been so consciously trying to untangle, this story of stress, this narrative that I am stressed, that life is stressful, and this feeling like I need to make things more stressful than they need to be. And so it's something that I am really noticing in this period that is a bit more stressful, as we are packing up our lives, as we are preparing to move and to go away. And you know, I've talked about it in the last few episodes. It has been quite challenging, and I've been faced with all these other feelings like, what am I doing with my life? Where am I going? Like, this fear of the unknown, because I am moving into this new chapter where there is so much unknown. I have no idea what that next version of myself is going to look like. So it has been bringing up so much, and I've just noticed like my body is just so much quicker to revert back to that old pattern of stress. And I don't want to live like that anymore. I don't want to live in a place of constant stress, or even just in these more, let's not even call it stressful times, these more chaotic times. I don't want stress to be running the show. I don't want stress to be something that I'm just automatically going back to. And I have noticed, actually, interestingly, that things like anxiety have been coming up for me more recently. And in a way, it actually is a really beautiful reminder of just how far I've come, because anxiety used to be something that I would deal with daily. I would have panic attacks or moments of just like overwhelming anxiety, and this feeling of like my heart racing, my heart pounding, and being so overly self-conscious and over-analyzing every situation and worrying, in a constant state of worry. And it is a beautiful reminder when it does come up now that this isn't something that is a constant for me. And so isn't that a beautiful thing to see just how far I've come? But at the same time, it's a reminder of just how easy it can be to slip back into that pattern, that habit, that old way of being that I don't want to embody anymore. I don't want to carry this old way of being anymore. And so let's just pause now and take another deep breath. because even just I'm noticing like my heart's starting to race a little as I'm talking, getting myself worked up. So where are we making things more stressful than they need to be? Where are we worrying about things in the future that haven't come yet, that we don't know what the outcome's going to be or what they're going to look like, what it's going to look like? Where are we placing our focus on these things that are out of our control? And how can we shift that back? How can we take our power back to the things that we can tend to? This has been a common theme coming up over the last few episodes, tending to what is present right here and now, what is right in front of us. What is it that I need to do right now? And can I just tend to that? Can I just focus on that? And then know that the next thing will appear and there's going to be something next, and I will attend to that then. I don't need to be worrying about this now. And this is what anxiety is. Anxiety is when we are worried about something that might happen in the future. It's when our mind is in the future rather than in the present. And they often say that depression is when we're caught up in the past, when we're dwelling in things that happened in the past that hurt us, that were painful, that made us feel ashamed, whatever it may be, however we felt. When we're caught up in the past, we can feel depressed, and when we're caught up in the future, we can feel anxious. And this is why mindfulness is the practice of being present, coming back to this moment, because this moment, generally speaking, everything actually is okay. If we challenge, because we may challenge that. Our mind may say, well, no, everything isn't okay right now. This thing is wrong and this thing is wrong, and we've got all these kinds of stories and narratives that we're playing, that are running the show. But if we just take a deep breath and come back to right here and now, we look around, we notice our feet on the ground, we notice the palms of our hands together, we come back to our senses, we come back to this moment, we can realize that generally in this moment everything is okay. And if there is an immediate danger, or there is an immediate thing that is asking for our attention in this very moment, then we tend to it, we address it, and we can trust ourselves. We can trust that we will know what to do in the moment as it arises. So we don't need to be forecasting, we don't need to be hypothesizing, catastrophizing. We don't need to be dwelling in the past or in anxious anticipation of the future. We can come back to this moment and remember that this moment is all we have access to, and this moment is all we need to tend to. And this, I think, is where we can really start to break down or break those cycles of stress, those cycles of anxiety, is through the practice of coming back to this moment. Check in with yourself, check in with your heart, remind yourself of what's important, connect with your breath. The breath is such a powerful tool, and it's why I often use it in these podcast episodes to help us to just drop back into this moment. Come back to here and now. So, a question for you. I invite you to ponder, to reflect on where you may be making things more stressful than they need to be. And I don't ask this or invite you to ask this of yourself as a way to judge yourself or to be critical of yourself if you are feeling stressed at the moment. Just remember that that's normal. We all experience stress. We all feel stressed from time to time. It's actually unhealthy not to have stress in our lives. We need a healthy amount of stress. But when it starts to control our lives and we start to find ourselves in a constant state of stress, this is where we tip the scales and we can find that we may experience anxiety, we may feel overwhelmed, we may start to notice how it impacts our health and our well-being. So, can we shift the way we relate to stress? Can we come back to this moment? Can we draw on all of the different practices and tools that we have access to help us to manage stress? And can we just tend to what is right here and now? So I'm going to leave it there. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for joining me today. Thanks for being here. And thank you for being you. I hope that you've enjoyed this conversation and I hope that it has been valuable. And I would love to hear your thoughts. If you have any feedback, anything you want to share, then I'd love to hear your thoughts. You can give me a review. You can rate this podcast if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, or you can leave me a comment if you're watching on YouTube. All right, my loves, I really look forward to seeing you in my next episode. Take care. Bye for now. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. I really hope you enjoyed it, and I hope it brought you some calm amongst the chaos of life and reminded you just how worthy you are. Thank you for being here and being you. There's no one else just like you, and I'm so grateful to have you here, and I look forward to speaking to you next time.